Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Wednesday. I wanted to get enough of the model runs in so that we could take a look at what's going on. You know, the NAM model, which is the North American model, is a short-range model, did very well yesterday with the rainfall. So I just kind of want to pay attention to it as we go forward. And it only goes out 84 hours. But everything seems to be moving along with regards to what's going to happen this weekend. But the thing is, and we've been saying this, if you've been following these videos the last few days, this upper air storm that forms out in the Atlantic is really the key here going forward, in terms of what is going to happen. Because as it sits out here, it's effectively acting as a block. This is the next weather system that's moving eastward. So the normal tendency is if this wasn't out here, this would lift up to the northeast and we would have a simple cold front. But the presence of that upper air storm kind of dictates a different possibility. It's all going to really depend on whether this is strong enough or does it weaken and get out of the way. And as we look at the NAM model, it tends to want to weaken it, and that's and the result is that the upper air system that forms for the weekend is much further north on today's run. So you can see it up here as opposed to being, somewhere down here, and that makes a huge difference in terms of the outcome of the weather going forward. Now, it's not to say that this is correct, but one of the things that I've picked up on with regards to the GFS model run today, it has now really backed away from the idea of this weather system being very strong and further south, because what it does is, you can see it really starts to move that blocking low in the Atlantic, which is right out here. We're looking at Friday morning here. It really kicks it out to the east and leaves enough room so that this upper trough just lifts up and out. And I think that's a real possibility. Unless this Atlantic system locks in there for a day or two, there's nothing really to prevent it from the next weather system from just moving right along, in which case this would just be a simple cold front on Saturday that moves through, and that's it. And there'll be some lake effect snows behind it, but it won't be any huge deal. Certainly not what the European was suggesting. So I'll show you on the tighter view, and we'll go to the surface, and I think you'll see it better here on this case. But there you go. So we'll move it along. You see the Atlantic low was forecast to sit offshore, but it really is further east on this run. So there's plenty of room for that system to the west to just keep on moving, and that's what it does. So here we are Saturday afternoon on this map on the GFS, and here's our cold front, and it's already through the coast. The low is way up here. Here's that Atlantic system, but there's plenty of room for this system to just move right along and not redevelop down in this area. So that's a big issue, and you have cold air coming down behind it. That is a given as that low moves east. So this argues for a simple cold front. You can see the lake effect snows that go on during Sunday afternoon, but they're not even being driven by the cyclone itself. Look at the difference between where the low is this is for Sunday morning on today's run, and I'm going to go back to the overnight run, and it's much further southwest. You have a much more well-developed cyclone. If we go back to yesterday, it's kind of in line with what it has yesterday. The European was different. Here's last night's European model run in terms of what it was doing. And you can see that there's that Atlantic storm. It's actually a little deeper. We don't have enough. The European, we only have in 24-hour increments as opposed to 6-hour increments with the other models. But you can see it has a deeper low further southwest in upstate New York. The day run yesterday, if we go back to that, actually had it even further south. It had the low basically over northern New Jersey and then off the south shore of Long Island by Monday morning. So this was a totally different view because the upper air system on the day run yesterday was way to the south. So, here's the European from yesterday, and here's the comparison to today's GFS. And you can see the upper airs are almost completely different. This is a much more progressive, move it right along. Shot of cold air comes in, and we will be cold Sunday and Monday. And then temperatures will probably start to moderate a little bit after that. Now, I don't have enough. Let's see how far out we can go. All right, we actually can go into the latter part of next week. But, by the way, I would just say, this is today's runs. We're still at Wednesday, so I wouldn't be surprised if something, if it winds up migrating back to something else as we go into the weekend. Don't be too surprised. But anyway, here's our front. Comes on through. It gets cold. We moderate a little bit on Tuesday. Now, because of the blocking that's developing, the GFS on this run wants to take, and it's been going back and forth with this. Now it wants to take this next low for Thanksgiving Day, going by to our west, and has mostly rain everywhere. If we go back to the run from last night, just to show you a point of comparison, it did take it to the west, but tried to redevelop it. And if we go back a couple of more runs, we'll go back to yesterday's day run, and it had a low that basically moved across northern Ohio and then redeveloped off the New Jersey shore with snows up in northern New England. I mean, look, here's the bottom line going forward, and I'll show this to you. We are going to go into a super negative North Atlantic Oscillation Index beginning this weekend and taking us right through the end of the month. These are very, very low values here. It's liable to cause some things to happen in the atmosphere longer term that we're not going to be able to see on day-to-day model runs. The Eastern Pacific Oscillation goes from slightly negative to slightly positive this weekend to slightly negative through much of next week through the end of the month. So that would favor temperatures to be at no worse than normal and possibly a little colder than normal. And the Pacific North America Index, which tells us how strong the ridge is in the west, and this is important when it comes to storm development. When it's positive, if you have a stronger ridge in the west, you have the support to have a deeper trough or a deeper system in the east. I'm simplifying it, but that's basically what it says. And it does have a positive, the index is positive at certain points around Thanksgiving and after that. But it's these two indexes, the North Atlantic Oscillation and the East Pacific Oscillation, that I think are more important in terms of setting up the overall long-term pattern. So continue to watch to see what happens. Don't forget, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, weatherlongisland.com, Angry Ben's weather on nycweathernow.com, and SS Storm Chasers for all your storm chasing needs when we have storms to chase. And we will have storms to chase pretty soon.